Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of RC Retirement. I'm your host, DJ, and today I've got an interesting topic for you. I've got an interview with a retired field grade officer. This officer, named William, has a situation. Let's just call it that. He made a decision many years ago, and that decision is affecting him all the way up till today. And I think a lot of you out there will be able to relate to this. It will be quite an educational and informative topic for you. This is relating to accepting separation pay. In this case, it's the variable separation incentive. William has accepted this pay and since then has become eligible for retired pay on the reserve side. He is now receiving reserve retired pay, so he is having that VSI recouped. And things have gone awry in an interesting way, and William is going to tell us about that interesting little adventure of his. So, in fact, he and I have had a little bit of prior interaction. We had an email exchange, quite a significant email exchange prior to this interview, and that's actually how this came to be. He came to me looking for advice, and after arranging for hopefully some resolution to his situation, I then asked if he would be willing to help you guys learn from his experience and come on the show. And to everyone's benefit, he agreed. So without further ado, let's move on and meet William. Hello, everyone. This is DJ. Today I'm joined by William, a retired field grade officer who has been generous enough to give me his time and to answer some questions. William has gone through an interesting career and has jumped through some interesting hoops as he has dealt with some issues regarding his own retirement experience. I thought that you would be able to learn from this and either avoid his situation or at least better yourself and improve your situation as a result. So now I'm going to talk to William here and ask him to tell us a little about himself. William, a few people set out to be the person they have become. For example, in high school, a few people think to themselves, I want to be a winemaker or I want to be an insurance salesman. Who are you and how did you become what you are today? Would you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I think probably my grandfather and father all served in the military, and it seemed almost traditional that I should go in the military at some point in my life. I have been known to do things the hard way, and usually I end up where I'm supposed to be, but it's a more difficult path that I typically take. So I went to college, ROTC, I turned my commission down, and then several years later I said, what did I just do? And I enlisted in the Army for the 82nd Airborne. A couple years later, they sent me to OCS. Went on active duty for about 10 years. Got off active duty, reserves, National Guard. Went to medical school somewhere in between to be a physician assistant. Practicing medicine, having a lovely time. And one day, Uncle Sam called and said, congratulations, you've been recalled to active duty as an infantry officer. So off I went to Afghanistan. I arrived in Afghanistan, and the general looks at me and goes, what do you do as a civilian? And I told him, and he said, well, I'll put you in the hospital. I said, sir, you don't have that authority. I said, I'm a infantry officer, been to all these schools, blah, 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 but I'm a civilian PA. And he says, well, this doesn't make any sense. I said, General, this is the Army. Of course it doesn't make sense. So I spent a year in the infantry. He asked, you remember how to use a machine gun? I said, yep. He said, okay then. And that was it. And then I got out and retired. But it's been a different, not the normal path most people take.
I'd say so.
But interesting. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
That is interesting. You actually made me think of an old cavalry surgeon, Colonel Potter from MASH. You can stitch a wound or inflict a wound, whichever the situation requires.
That's true. That's true.
Just out of curiosity, you knew about my website before you contacted me. How did you find out about that site? What did you think of it? And what made you think to approach me regarding your investigation?
Well,
without getting too deep into your other issues, right. I'll get to that in a minute.
Right. I started researching different websites, trying to get information on retirement, VA stuff, finance and accounting issues, etc. And I think I was looking at like CRDP or CRSC, and clicked on your website, and like there you were answering questions. I was like, okay, we landed somewhere to list it down. And I watched a bunch of the mature classes, and because I look at it and go, yes, I got a master's degree, but I'm not a finance guy. In a finance book, in my imagination, maybe it's this big, but I imagine it's like 5 football fields thick and 10,000 million rules in there. And I'm not an expert, and I needed to get a better understanding of the information that's out there that would affect me. And that's why I started listening to your information, and then also eventually contacted you just to kind of clarify some of my results that I have found, and whether I was tracking with the right information, or was I off base, or how was this all going to affect me?
I like to know how people, or what people are thinking, and how they come across my little obscure website, which apparently is not as obscure as I think it is these days. Alrighty, now in your, I'm going to get a little bit into your personal affairs here. In your initial email, you said that you were separated from active duty in 1992 and given voluntary separation incentive. Would you please tell me about what you recall that led up to your separation from active duty and your continued career in the Army Reserve, first of all, and then we can talk about the VSI after that.
Well, I commanded a mechanized infantry company in Desert Storm. When I got out of that and went back to Germany, I got orders to go back to the States and go to the recruiting command.
Oh.
And I was begging to go back to a desert anywhere. Wasn't really excited about doing recruiting command. I went. We were very successful. We did well, but I really wasn't enjoying it. Then the Army was offering either SSB or VSI, Voluntary Separation Incentive, to get off active duty. So the options were take a lump sum or take a certain number of payments over certain number of years, which I opted for. It seemed like it wasn't really explained to me. It was more, this is an option, you can take it or not take it, but regardless, if you take it, you have got to stay in the reserves for the entire period or the money will stop. I said, okay, I understand that. And I also understood it had to be repaid if I ever reached retirement, which I understood that rule. But there are lots of little things in there that they don't explain to you. So so I took the money and we went home and joined the reserves.
Well, I'm actually in a kind of perverse way glad to know that you understood that if you achieved retirement eligibility, you would have to pay it back. There are a lot of people who do not, or at least claim they do not, know of that rule and say that they were never told that. They may not have been, but I know that there is a piece of paper somewhere where they signed saying that they acknowledge that. Now, maybe they weren't counseled properly and they were just told to sign this in order to get the money. But I've had a lot of folks over the years who are hopping mad because they took a form of separation pay and now have to pay it back because they're eligible for a military pension. So I'm glad that you at least knew in advance that this was coming.
Yeah, and I thought, well, maybe I won't stay for 20, maybe I will. I really didn't know at that point. I mean, I was, I had 10 years to go. I didn't know where life was going to take me anyway. And then I just said, okay, well, I've got 10 in. Let me go as far as I can go. Just keep going.
Well, for how long was the VSI supposed to pay? And if you don't mind mentioning it, how much did it pay?
It was, I think, 18 years. So it was like twice your active duty time. And then it was like $7,500 a year. So about 140.
Oh, wow.
For 18 years.
So if you stayed in the reserves for that whole period, you would definitely cross the magic line and be retirement eligible.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, I had to stay. I didn't have any choice, really. That's one of the things that I thought was so screwy later on thinking about it, like in the last couple of years. It's like, okay, if I've got to stay 18 years, so I have, as long as I have to stay in as long as they're paying me. So I've already done 10. I've got to do an additional 18 years because they'll get paid for every year. And if I stop, then the money stops. So that already puts me over 20 something years easily.
Now I wonder if you could have been in the IRR the whole time and still been paid.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the IRR a lot. And the only requirement was, I mean, I did, courses and all that. I always had good years, except for I think one at some point. And that was kind of screwy because like they changed my year date by 6 months for some reason, which I never quite understood. But so I was having good, reserve years for the entire time until I went back on active duty.
Yeah, I think the IRR is a good option in limited cases. My thinking otherwise is if you're in the reserves, it's so easy to get a good year out of it.
Yeah.
By golly, do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, I mean, I was certified in so many courses, it was unbelievable. I'd sign up, oh yeah, well, let me do that. It was officer basic course. I had 4 or 5 of them done, advanced courses. I just pick a course I thought I was interested in and take it. And and get a good year.
Yeah.
It wasn't difficult.
Unfortunately, now they've clamped down on the correspondence courses and only allow them in certain limited circumstances, like train up for mobilization,
Right.
unit readiness, things like that. It's not as much of a free-for-all as it used to be. So, when did you retire from the Army Reserve?
I believe it was 2014, I believe.
Did you already have a VA rating at that time, or did that come later?
I had in 2012 a rating of like 20%, something like that. I had some injuries on active duty back in the mid 80s that maybe they never, when I was on active duty and got off, they never really discussed the VA stuff. So could I have applied for a VA disability way back when? Probably, but it never really came up as never really crossed my mind. Never knew anybody who was getting VA disability. It's just something that didn't know about. Not really.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2012, I did some research and said, well, I've had this thing, an injury for X number of years. And they said, yep, it's service connected. You got 20% or 30% or whatever it was. I said, okay. But that's when I really started to gather information, read up on things, trying to find out what am I missing? Because obviously they didn't tell me about any of this stuff at any point that I recall. It was all self-learning.
Right. Yeah, I had to get a crash course in at least VA math and VA compensation rules because I worked in retirement services and had to learn how VA compensation interacted with military pay.
Yeah.
And the problem is people then thought that I knew how VA claims worked. It's like, no, I have no clue how VA claims work. Don't ask me that. I don't know how to make your hearing claim go faster or whatever. I can tell you why your retired pay went down $200. That's because your disability rating went up 10%. But don't ask me how to make your rating go up another 20%. I'm not an expert on that, but yeah, the VA is an interesting animal. It seems to have a lot of crisscrossing, logically illogical rules. You said that you were recalled to active duty to deploy to Afghanistan. Was that from the Army Reserve or from the IRR or what exactly? And,
I was in the IRR. I'd gone to medical school to be a PA late in life, and so I was in the IRR, still earning points. I'm taking courses and things like that. And one day I called home to ask my son how his day was at school, and he says, "Daddy, the postman drove in the driveway and he made me sign for something." And we're living in the country, and I'm like, the postman doesn't drive in the driveway in the country unless it's something serious. I said, "Well, who's it from?" He said, "Daddy, it's from the Army." I went, "What? The Army?" I said, "Son, is it about the size of a phone book?" He said, "Yeah." "Does it have some weight to it?" "Yeah." I said, "Put it under the phone book and don't let your mama see it." So I went online and punched, went on the website, the Army website, and said, "Congratulations, you've been recalled to active duty." I was like, wow, great. So I told my ex-Navy surgeon who I was working for, "Sir, I've been recalled to active duty." He goes, "As a PA?" I went, "Nope, as an infantry officer." He went, "What?" I said, "Yep." And then I contact the Department of the Army, and I'm talking to a sergeant up there, and I said, "Look, I've had knee surgery. Will that stop me from going?" He said, I said, "Sir, are you watching the screen?" I said, "Absolutely." And he goes, "Stand by." And it's like something from the movies. Data being in process, file being uploaded. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? He goes, "Sir, click on that file." So I click on it, and they had a medical review board in the last 18 seconds, which said I was fully qualified to jump out of airplanes, go to Afghanistan, et cetera, with about 18 doctors stamped on it. Maybe not 18, probably 10. I said, "Sergeant, you're pretty good." And he goes, "Have a good trip, sir." So that medical review board was, he put my name on it and stamp, and off I went. And that's a true story,
Wow.
which is fine. I raised my hand a long time ago to go when called. So, but I thought it was pretty funny at the time. I thought it was funny.
And then suddenly you're in Afghanistan, and it's not as funny anymore.
I wasn't in Kansas anymore. It's not in Kansas.
The Wicked Witch of the Southwest is.
Lots of wickedness.
Well, you already told us a little bit about while you were there in Afghanistan. Would you please tell a little bit about your post-deployment experience?
I was a filler, like for a National Guard unit when I went. So at some point, I was going to individually redeploy back to the States and go to an Army base to help train the new incoming group going to Afghanistan. So I did that, and then at some point they said, "Well, where do you want to demobilize from?" And I went, "Someplace warm." So I just said, "Well, this is, I guess I'll go to Georgia. That sounds like a nice place." So I put my finger on the dot, and they said, "Okay, we'll demobilize you there." And off I went. And so I did that, turned in my equipment, and there wasn't much of a demobilization thing for me. I guess I was kind of I was a one-person demobilizing person. So they didn't, I turned in my equipment, and that's about the extent of what they did from what I recall. It wasn't much. I was there for a couple of days.
So no counseling, no out processing really, no physical, nothing like that?
I got no counseling that I recall on anything. I think they checked my hearing, and that was about it. And the worst part, obviously, was turning the TA-50 stuff. That's about all I remember from that. It wasn't much of anything. I think if I'd have been with a unit deploying in, or maybe this little base, I don't think they knew what to do with me at the time.
Yeah. Did you demob at Fort Stewart or some other location?
Was it Stewart? No. In Savannah?
At Hunter Army Airfield?
Yeah, like Hunter Army Airfield or someplace.
Oh, well, that might be why then.
Yeah, I just picked
Stewart, they were doing that, every day of the week.
Yeah, they were like, one day it was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" They said, "Well, why don't you take the weekend off?" I went, "Okay." I remember I went to Savannah. I was thinking, it's very exciting.
Wow.
So yeah, I was kind of.
Sounds like you were shortchanged.
Yeah, it was like, I'm seriously, it was put your finger on the map, and there's a base by there. You can demobilize there. I went, oh, that's fine. So Savannah sounds like a good spot for me. I'll go there.
Right there by the ocean.
I should have picked Hawaii. I'd have been thinking clearly. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Send me to the Halekoa. I'll demobilize from there.
Oh, that's a shame, because that sounds like it may have worked out to your disfavor, or maybe not, because sounds like things worked out better for you later, but at the time it seems like things weren't working out well, although you may not have known it.
Right.
Like counseling for VA benefits, or like a proper physical, things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think
employment, health assessment, things like that.
I think if I'd had a good, like a VA counseling session, that would have been a big help. Just like I said, I don't think I've ever had that. I never had a retirement counseling thing, though I'd looked online for places that were doing it, but it was always, I'd have to drive 2 hours away from wherever I was to get there. And I was like, is it worth it? I didn't know, but I wish I had have done that at some point. There probably was a lot of good information that I missed out on. So.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Well, I think things got better for you later, from what you told me anyway.
All right, so that is part 1 of today's interview. I do hope that you found it entertaining and informative. Please come back next time for part 2, and we will continue with this very informative interview, and then we will move on with part 2 and maybe even a part 3. Just depends on how the editing goes. All right, so thank you for joining me for today's episode. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please be sure to share this episode with others. And if you would like to support my efforts, then please be sure to go on over to patreon.com/rcretirement and join at any of the pre-made levels of support, or you can create one of your own. You can also support the show at amazon.com by clicking on the affiliate link on the right hand side of the website and do your Amazon shopping at no additional cost, and you can support the show in that manner as well, and you will have my thanks. Lastly, if you need personal support in some way, then go to rcretirement.com, look at the fees for services tab, and you can see all manner of ways in which I can support you on a personal level. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can contact me at dj@rcretirement.com. Drop me an email and tell me what you think. All right, so thank you for being a part of this audience. Please join me again for our next episode. Until then, thank you for your time and thank you for your service. Have a nice day.